So you want to start playing the Ronin. I could see the appeal as a technical Ronin main myself. Whether you're like me and you like to play the healer or support role in multiplayer games, or maybe you just don't feel confident enough to take on an open combat role like the other three classes just yet, in the end it doesn't matter why you picked Ronin. The fact of the matter is, you did pick Ronin, so now you need to know how to play him in order to be the best support that your team could hope for. With that being said, my name is Phantasm Gaming, and welcome to my beginner's guide on how to get started as the Ronin in Ghost of Tsushima Legends. A short disclaimer, at the time of recording this video, I have only just started getting into the gold rank of survival and story missions, and I have not completed any of the recently added raids just yet, so I can't speak for sure in terms of endgame content as the Ronin. I have played the Ronin the most out of the four classes though, and it is the one I enjoy playing the most, so I believe I have enough experience to give newer players some advice to get started as the Ronin. So for the uninitiated, what is the Ronin class? The Ronin is one of the four ghost classes available to players in Legend mode, the other three being the Samurai, Hunter, and Assassin. While the other three classes take on distinct combat roles, Samurai for open combat, Hunter for long-range combat, and Assassin for stealth combat, the Ronin on the other hand is the quintessential support role for Legends. With their spirit dog in hand to distract and break the guards of enemies, as well as the unrivaled ability to instantly resurrect up to 3 down players from across the entire map, the Ronin is an essential figure on the battlefield. While they likely won't be getting the sheer number of kills that the other three classes can boast, the Ronin makes up for that in sheer versatility and the uncanny ability to keep your teammates alive. If you have any intention of going into higher difficulties such as Gold, Nightmare, or the raids, then you best hope you have a good Ronin by your side, or your entire team will be doomed to failure from the moment you load into the match. Like all classes, the Ronin begins with two unique abilities, one being a class ability activated by pressing down on the D-pad that is on a set cooldown once it's activated, the other being an ultimate ability that can be used instantly by pressing L1 and R1 when you have 3 points of resolve. Later on, after ranking up, you can unlock a second class ability that you can swap between, but you can only have one active at a time. You can also unlock another ability that costs a single point of resolve to activate and acts similar to a ghost weapon, though, like other perks, you can choose if you want to have this one available. The initial class ability is Spirit Animal. By activating this, the Ronin can summon a spectral dog, runs around for a period of time, and attacks enemies, dealing a small amount of damage to them and breaking their guard, leaving them open to your attacks. And yes, you can pet the dog like you do with foxes in the single-player story mode. The second class ability you can get is Healing Incense. With this ability, the Ronin drops a pot of healing incense to the ground that will heal yourself and allies standing in the glowing white radius of fumes, similar to the aura given off by healing drums when struck. Pretty standard and straightforward, so there's not much else to say in regards to this character ability. The third ability granted to this class is Weakening Burst. This acts like a ghost weapon, and by pressing R1 and X at the same time, it will cause the Ronin to let out a burst of poison that increases the damage dealt to affected enemies by 25%, and reduces the damage dealt by the affected enemies by 25%. This only lasts for a few seconds though, and it does cost a single point of resolve to activate, so use it wisely. The final ability is the ultimate, Breath of Izanami. When activated, this ability instantly revives any downed teammates, no matter where they are on the map. It goes without saying that this ability is an absolute godsend at higher difficulties, and is part of the reason why Ronin are so necessary in a good team. Though it may lack the damage potential of the other three class ultimates, it makes up for it in sheer usefulness. Remember in Overwatch how Mercy used to be the only true pick for healers due to her Resurrect ultimate before she got nerfed? Ronin is essentially the Mercy of Legends, and not having a Ronin on your team means missing out on this powerful ability that can instantly turn the tides in a fight that's going south. Later perks taken in the Ronin perk tree can add one of two effects to the ultimate, turning it from merely an oh crap panic button to a reliable heal or even a decent damage ability. The first effect is Soothing Breath. With this perk is active in your loadout, Breath of Izanami will apply a powerful heal over time effect to all players in the team, in addition to the revive for 8 seconds. This includes yourself. And something to keep in mind, though, is that with this bonus effect, you don't have to revive a player in order to apply the healing effect, meaning it can be used in a pinch to immediately save the lives of multiple players and yourself during those boss waves. The second effect is Burning Breath. While this perk is active, Breath of Izanami will also ignite all players near enemies. In a sense, this can be described as similar to the ability you can purchase from gift altars in survival mode, except that it can be done on command, as long as you have 3 points of resolve. Like with Soothing Breath, this can be activated at any time, regardless of whether or not any of your teammates are downed. Both perks are fantastic bonuses to add to Breath of Izanami, one for damage and one for healing. With Burning Breath, you likely won't have any trouble completing bonus objectives like fire damage, and Soothing Breath is an incredibly useful utility for map-wide healing in an instant. Personally, I have a bit of a bias towards Soothing Breath, but both perks have their place in a playstyle, especially if you have gear that boosts your resolve gain, meaning you can get your ultimate ready again extremely fast to make it more useful more frequently. Of the 9 perks available to the Ronin, you could only have 3 active at any time, same as any other class. While I don't believe there are any truly bad perks, as I believe all of them have their place in the Ronin playstyle to some degree, there are perks I would recommend to be the most effective Ronin when it comes to supporting your team, based on my own experiences in the game. These perks are as follows. Ronin Unleashed. Decreases class ability cooldown by 15%. Resolve Increase. Increases max resolve by 1. Soothing Breath. Breath of Izanami now applies a heal over time to all players for 8 seconds. With these perks, not only will you be dropping spirit dogs and healing more frequently, but you'll also be able to heal more frequently via your ultimate as well, in order to save yourselves and allies before they die, and not just afterwards. The resolve increase also makes it easier to use Breath of Izanami more frequently by banking an extra resolve in order to recharge your ultimate faster. As fun as Burning Breath can be sometimes, the heal over time is, in my opinion, too potent of a utility not to use. If you watch one of my recent videos where I played as the Hunter in Gold Survival Mode, you'll see that the random Ronin having Burning Breath both helped and hindered us at the same time. Sure, we had great damage output, but the lack of a heal over time after a revive did cause us to go straight back down immediately after, in the events where we were swarmed by enemies. This perk list is, in my opinion, the best one for playing the Ronin, as I personally feel it should be played, as the ultimate support class. That being said, you can swap out Ronin Unleashed for Weakening Burst to help out the team in other ways. As previously mentioned, Weakening Burst weakens enemies so that they deal 25% less damage and take 25% more damage. With the additional resolve, this means you'll be able to use this ability more frequently in the heat of battle to make enemies easier to kill, especially useful on the Oni enemies that come across in the boss battles. Keep in mind, though, that this does cost a single point of resolve to use each time you activate the ability, which can mean less resolve to pull off your ultimate in a pinch. It doesn't mean you shouldn't use it, but just be careful of using it at the wrong moment, if you're not careful. And of course, the legendary perk, which allows you to equip 2 legendary items instead of just 1, is never a bad choice to go with. But again, keep in mind that this will result in you losing out on either heal over time or igniting enemies, so use it with caution. In case you haven't guessed by now, I have an obvious bias towards which perk I prefer in slot 3. Now remember that these perk suggestions are merely that, suggestions. These are perks for how I like to best play my Ronin, but I'm also open to mixing things up from time to time. Your best bet is to find a setup that works best for you and then fine-tune it to your chosen playstyle as the Ronin. Now let's talk about gear loadouts for the Ronin. When it comes to the katana, it's all a matter of personal preference. I did find that I tend to have more trouble with brutes and spearmen on higher difficulties, though, so if possible, I would recommend getting a hold of a moon or wind katana. If you can, though, I would recommend having the legendary Master's Katana on your Ronin. While this katana does lack some of the crazier special effects of the other legendary katanas, this one makes up for it by letting you swap between any of the 4 stances as you please, instead of just having 1 or possibly 2. Which allows your Ronin to adapt for any situation and be ready for anything. Adaptability is probably your best trait to have as a Ronin. Like the Hunter and the Assassin, the Ronin has a unique ranged weapon available to him in the form of bomb packs. These bombs usually come in the form of concussion bombs, which will stagger and stun enemies while dealing AoE damage, though they can also potentially come with additional variations, such as flashbangs to blind enemies, or black powder bombs for just a straight-up damage boost. These can be restocked at any ghost offering on the map, just like arrows can, or they can be picked up off the ground as loot from slain enemies. While you do sacrifice some of the accuracy and raw damage of a bow, or the status effects of the blow dart pipe, the bombs do make up for it by being able to affect multiple enemies at once without the use of an ultimate such as Aivu Shitsune. And they can also be spammed like crazy to essentially carpet bomb a large group of enemies with stuns and some damage. In addition, usage of bombs is a phenomenal way to build up resolve quickly in combat. That's not to say you can't use a bow if you want to, but the Ronin truly thrives with bombs to essentially become a discount demo man in the right hands. If you're able to get a hold of it, the legendary bomb pack Forbidden Medicine is an invaluable boon to the Ronin, as the bombs thrown have the additional effect of healing allies caught in the blast radius. This is a must for any Ronin planning to play as the healer role, as they can be spammed just like any other bomb to instantly restore a sizable amount of health to multiple allies in a split second without needing to rely on an ability cooldown. In terms of ghost weapons, you can really pick whatever you want, as they're all useful in some form or fashion. Personally, I would recommend a smoke bomb for quick escapes when needed, as the Ronin must always be the last person alive in a fight in order to pull off a quick res with Breast of Izanami. In a similar fashion, Dirt Throw is also useful as it staggers and stuns enemies caught in the cloud of dust. A useful legendary that you could keep an eye out for, though, is Kenji's Shared Brew, a healing gourd that will also heal nearby allies. Again, very useful for a healer role, especially if you choose to bring the spirit animal instead of healing incense as your class ability. Finally, we come to charms. When it comes to Ronin charms, a defense charm of some sort will likely be your best option. As previously mentioned, the Ronin should always be the last team member alive in order to pull off a clutch revival using their ultimate, and the more survivability, the better. Effects I'd recommend looking out for are ones that boost your cooldown, as shorter cooldowns mean more frequent spirit animals and incense. If at all possible, however, the unique Ronin class charm is something you should definitely get a hold of. This charm will enhance the abilities of the class to a whole new level, and comes with 2 unique perks that only the Ronin can get that will improve your class abilities. The first perk is Healing Spirit, which will grant your spirit animal a healing aura similar to the Healing Incense. With this perk, you also have the capabilities to heal your team even if you take the spirit animal over the Healing Incense. Although, keep in mind that the spirit dog does tend to wander around a bit in combat, so the overall healing may not be as effective since you'll have to chase down your dog to get it. That being said, you would likely summon the dog in combat alongside your allies anyways, and the dog does have a tendency to stick close to your general area to a degree, so yeah, you'll have to decide for yourself in that regard. The second perk is Spirit Bear, which changes your spirit animal to summon a bear instead of a dog. This is a massive upgrade in terms of straight combat potential, as the Spirit Bear is essentially identical to the one you can buy gift altars in survival, making a massive boon in combat against multiple enemies. The bear has far more health than the dog and deals much more damage. It can also maul and toss enemies around like ragdolls. You do lose out on the healing aura from the Healing Spirit perk though, so you can only have one of these perks on at a time. And something to keep in mind about these charm perks is that you do have to reroll part of the charm to get them if it didn't come with it initially, so there is some degree of chance involved. To start wrapping up this video, here's a few tips and tricks I'd like to offer based on my experiences I've had playing as the Ronin so far. The first tip I can give is remember that while you're a support class, you are also still perfectly capable of being a frontline fighter. This is especially evident if you have the spirit animal ability slotted, and even more so with the Spirit Bear on the Ronin charm. Combine this with the right katana and a good bomb pack, and the Ronin can be a lethal force in close combat. But at the same time, remember you are not the samurai who can tank ridiculous amounts of damage, and be aware of your own limitations. The second tip I have may seem counterintuitive to the tip that I just gave, but always remember that you are the healer. Getting up close and personal to deal out smackdown on enemies is all well and good, but always remember that the Ronin is the support class, and that if you die, your entire team dies. I've said it multiple times by now, and I'll say it again. The Ronin must always be the last teammate to die. If things start going south, immediately back off to a safe distance and activate your ultimate. Trust me, your teammates will thank you. The third tip I can offer is to master the art of the perfect parry and the perfect dodge. If you plan to be in melee combat for any extended period of time, definitely learn to pull this off. Not only will it help you negate damage without needing to move too far from your location, but the counterattack from these parries and dodges deal massive damage and will be invaluable at higher difficulties. and you do tend to get some resolve on successful parries, meaning more frequent ultimates. That, and also, it makes you feel like a badass whenever you pull it off, and so you obviously want that. The fourth tip I have for you is to know when to best use your ultimate. Whether you pick Soothing Breath or Burning Breath as your modifier, remember that these effects still activate on yourself and your allies even if you don't revive them with the ultimate. Don't be afraid to pop Breath of Izanami to save your allies before they die, especially if you're the type of Ronin who can handle themselves in combat to regain resolve quickly. But don't waste it needlessly. I remember a Ronin wasting his ultimate when we were at full health just to ignite some nearby enemies, and it didn't end well later when he didn't have it ready when we needed it. The final tip I have, and this applies for all classes, not just the Ronin, coordinate with your team. Whether you're using the voice chat or the in-game emotes, always coordinate with your team to keep them aware of events happening around them. As the Ronin, this is doubly important since you're the support class. Always keep the team in the know when your ultimate is ready, when you're going to use it, when you're going to deploy your incense if you pick that as your class ability. Especially in the case of incense, as using a Ronin's incense saves you from having to hunt down a healing drum, meaning you can save those for the dire moments when you really need them during a boss wave and when your abilities are on cooldown. In conclusion, the Ronin is a class that is clearly shown to be one of the most essential roles for a good team in Ghost of Tsushima Legends. With this class being one of the few that can heal naturally without needing to use specific items or charms or legendary gear, as well as the undeniable power and utility of Breath of Izanami, it's not hard to see why Ronin is practically required at higher difficulties. I assume even more so now with the new raids that were added. Hopefully this guide gives you a few tips and ideas to consider when getting started as the Ronin and becoming the best support your team can hope for. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you're interested, I recommend checking out some of the other videos on my channel for more Ghost of Tsushima content, as well as content for other games I've played. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care now.